Michelle and Christopher are siblings. They have a great bond. They're living in the time of the uprising of a conflict between robots and humans. Many years ago, after Walt Disney's introduction to the first ever robot in the world, they were being created in a mass production. Now, the robots have started protesting against the humans who treat them like slaves under the leadership of a nut-shaped robot, Mr. Peanut. Soon, a war began, and the robot had the upper hand until a scientist named Ethan Skate invented something called a neurocraster that helped link the human mind to mechanized drone bodies. After this invention, the humans have the upper hand in the war. They soon win it and imprison all the surviving robots as Mr. Peanut signs up the peace letter. Michelle, now 3 years older, lives with an old man who is her foster parent and uses neurocraster on a daily basis. These things have become the daily routine in schools, but Michelle doesn't like it. She has been called by the teacher and is asked to call her mother. Michelle then reveals that her parents and her brother have all died due to a car accident during the war. At night, Michelle wakes up and hears a sound from outside. She gets up to check it from the window and sees a shadow. As she gets down with a flashlight, and something turns over in the storage. She runs back inside and locks the door and calls her guardian, but the man is asleep with his neurocraster on. Michelle runs up to her room and hides under the bed. It is a robot that has come in. After he checks the room, he realizes Michelle is under the bed and takes her out. Michelle tries to defend herself with a screwdriver, but the robot appears to be harmless. He cannot talk and shows her the issue. Michelle fixes the wire and he starts to talk normally. The robot takes her photo with her brother and indicates that he is her brother, Christopher. Michelle doesn't trust him, gets angry, and throws him up the cupboard, which wakes her guardian up. She tries to take her and run, but the man has come up. He screams at her and pushes her. Christopher then approaches the man and pushes back. The man, now being angrier, tries to hit him with a golf club, but is beaten again. He attempts to call the police, but before he can say anything, Michelle electrocutes him. They get out and hop in the car as the neurocraster robot of her guardian runs to jump at them. But Michelle somehow manages to throw him off with a crash. In the morning, when they are in an isolated area, Michelle asks him if the real Christopher is somewhere alive, and he replies yes, but he is not fine. She asks her where he is, and he can only point out that he is in Center, the company that has invented the neurocrasters. But Center is everywhere in the world, so she asks for more information. Christopher says that a doctor who wears glasses may tell. Michelle remembers that the doctor who told her brother is dead matches the description. She brings out the map, and Christopher points out that they have to go to the exclusion zone of all the robots after the war. They find out that the person from whom Michelle's guardian buys his stuff is from the exclusion zone. They get the address from the trunk of the car and reach there, hiding on a train. They reach the factory and peek from a corner at the man who owns it. He gets some money out from a locker, and soon a neurocraster cop comes to him. He's about to sell him a gun, but the cop soon points it out at the man. The man plays it cool and bends a little. Before the cop understands it, he is thrown a beam and he falls down. It is a robot named Herman. Meanwhile, an experienced super cop named Marshall gets there to find them. But the man whose name is Keats and Herman has driven off. Michelle and Christopher hide inside the truck. As they reach the place, they witness it all from behind a crate as they converse. They have a great bond between them. They soon get the sense that someone is there and captures them immediately. Michelle has heard that they're going to the exclusion zone, and they need to get there as well. Keats says it is a bad idea and that she should return, but soon Marshall has come in from the elevator. He hides the bots and asks Michelle to pretend that she is his mute sister. They appear friendly in front of Marshall, but Marshall is here to arrest Michelle, who has committed a lot of the crimes. As Keats tries to barge in, Marshall points at him, and soon Herman is there about to shoot Marshall. But Marshall, being much professional, uses Keats as a human shield. He fires back at them and then points at Michelle, who is aware of the clap light system, and turns it off. A fight breaks out among them, whereas everyone attacks Marshall one by one, and after some tireless effort, they manage to beat him and run away from the place, but end up in the desert. In the desert, there are scavenger bots, which are basically robot zombies. Keats runs from there and enters his huge storage room, where there is a bigger version of Herman that he can operate. Seeing all this, Michelle says that it is easy for him to take her to the exclusion zone, and Keats agrees. Herman takes up the van and starts walking. Then they tell her the story of how they met during the war. As Herman was about to kill him, Keats was helplessly crying, and he just lifted him and saved him. They have been running from the cops ever since. The neurocrasters can be used as a tool to view an alternate past to find peace with trauma, as Ethan does so with his mother, although it doesn't work very well. Ethan is now angry, is even pissed knowing Marshall has gone down. He calls Marshall for a virtual meeting and advises and inspires him to reach out again, and he can capture them this time. The team has reached the exclusion zone, but soon things are being thrown at them. Herman loses balance, and they all fall. They're now surrounded by the bots and are captured. Inside, they see all sorts of robots and are finally been put in front of Mr. Peanut. Mr. Peanut doesn't see them as a dangerous sort. Michelle reveals that they are looking for a doctor with glasses who knows where his brother is. Mr. Peanut later informs that there was a doctor among them who matches the description. His name is Dr. Clerk. He has his facility in the middle of the desert, but Mr. Peanut doesn't want to go, nor is Keats. He says that it is dangerous to go out in the desert at night, and the chances of dying are high. So Michelle decides to go in the morning. At night, Michelle is given a postcard by Penny, which has the address of Dr. Clerk. Dr. Clerk had asked Mr. Peanut to immediately send if a robot came by with the identity of Christopher. The place where the address redirects is filled with scavengers, so they need strong robots. Mr. Peanut helps them this time and provides them with a robot named Popfly who seems to be a little too weak, but apparently is not. They embark on the journey in the morning and reach Dr. Clerk's house by the night. Soon, they're surrounded by the scavengers. They run and slam on the door as the zombies start to attack them. Soon, some lights are turned on and loud music starts being played as the scavengers close their ears and run away. And immediately the ground on their feet disappears and they all fall down on a slide. Dr. Clerk is there, pointing his gun at them. As he sees the robot of Christopher, he is awed. Soon, Michelle and Keats corner him and ask for Christopher. He says that Christopher is in Center's main building in Seattle. They took him because Christopher apparently has a perfect brain to use as an operator of the Neurocrasters. He is now in a coma stage and is being kept alive for this purpose only. They attack Dr. Clerk and say that he has to help them find her brother. Meanwhile, Marshall has come again into the place. Mr. Peanut lets everyone run and stands back to fight Marshall. Outside, Michelle and Christopher try to escape separately as the others are encountered by a plethora of soldiers. They fight back. Michelle is surrounded by the soldiers as well. But this time Dr. Clerk saves her. Inside the house, Marshall beats Mr. Peanut and gets out to find Michelle. Having been witnessed, there is no other way. Dr. Clerk says that they should run and he will encounter Marshall. He does, so knowing very well Marshall is not allowed to kill humans. However, Ethan himself comes down this time and immediately kills Dr. Clerk. Marshall is shocked. As the soldiers now capture Christopher and Michelle, Marshall comes in to save her. All the soldiers leave since they have gotten Christopher. His robot is taken to the center's facility as Ethan approaches him. Marshall is there as well and calls him a murderer. But Ethan says that all he has achieved so far is because of him and Christopher. He says that the Neurocrast are to provide peace by making one forget the past, as it does to him, for he had an abusive mother. Michelle and the others now plan to get her brother back from the main facility. Dr. Clerk's robot reveals that if somehow she is able to get her brother out, the entire drone system of Center will collapse. Now, Michelle thinks it can be a great idea, although Mr. Peanut, who is now much injured, suggests against it. However, with much request from Michelle, he finally agreed to it. They embark on their journey and announce an attack on the whole facility. With the help of a huge Herman, they throw cars at the building. All the soldiers now come out and take this chance. Michelle gets into the facility with Dr. Clerk. Herman loses his huge body in the fight, but he is still huge enough and they continue the fight. The others also keep on fighting, making the ground an entire war zone. Seeing the situation, Ethan himself gets out to fight, making the main room empty with only 2 scientists. But Dr. Clerk's robot scares them off. Michelle finally gets to meet her brother. Ethan operates the biggest soldier they got. The soldier, being extremely powerful, kills off most of the robots with ease. Ethan is able to beat the gigantic robot as well. As Mr. Peanut is fighting off soldiers, Marshall comes in, points his gun at him, but he doesn't kill him, rather gives him the location of Ethan. Then he leaves and turns his Neurocraster off. Michelle wears the Neurocraster to communicate with her brother and is able to do so. Christopher tells her that there is no way out for him. She has to cut off his power to save all the people, but he cannot live. Meanwhile, Ethan kills off the next huge version of Herman as well, who returns to his present self and still attacks the soldiers. Ethan takes off and finds Mr. Peanut behind him. Herman is now injured and is about to die. Michelle is very clear that she cannot let her brother die, but Christopher tells her that there is no other way and she should have to do it. They hug each other goodbye, and Michelle finally turns off the plug. The entire drone system crashes and all Senate devices are turned off in the country. Herman is now passed, and Keats cries in front of him, saying he was his only friend, and now he is only lonely. But as it turns out, Herman even has a smaller version of that, and they reunite again. The entire story comes out in the news. Ethan is now arrested, and Michelle has turned into the hero of the world, who addresses the world on live television for a more united world where robots and humans can live happily together. So that was the video. For more videos like this, stay subscribed to the channel. And if you have liked this video, you may also like this.